It's going down. I'm your captain. It's going down. I'm your captain. It's going down. I'm your captain. It's going down. I'm your captain now. It's going down.
All right, welcome to episode 4, the Deep Dition podcast. We're back on the road today. We're in Dallas, Texas, and I have a very special guest. I've known him for about 20 years through a very close mutual friend of ours. However, I don't really know him the way that I should, if that makes sense. So I'm very excited about this conversation today because we are all going to get to know him. He's a Bossier City, Louisiana native, former star basketball player at Airline High School, Centenary College basketball legend, and NBA world champion for my Houston Rockets in 1994. What I'm excited about today is that this is not a basketball conversation per se, although basketball certainly is the backdrop, but more of a conversation about life because of basketball. If you have any young athletes who want to pursue high school, college, or professional sports, this would be a great conversation to actually share with them or watch with them because you're going to hear a lot of really great lessons about work ethic, overcoming obstacles, perseverance, how to have a champion's mindset. So this is a great opportunity for our youngsters today to hear about the journey of a professional athlete who has been through a lot and seen a lot. So with that, I'd like to welcome my guest, my friend, whom we affectionately known as L-Rob, Larry Robinson. What's up, man?
What's going on, TD?
It's been a long time.
It has been a long time,
It's been a while. Tell me what you've been up to lately, man. I know you got a lot of exciting things in the works right now.
Wow. First of all, great introduction. Very smooth. And to that friend that introduced us about 20 years ago, shout out to the great Pat Boris over in Shreveport, Louisiana. Terrific guy. One of my favorite people in this world.
100%.
To start out, thanks for having me first and foremost.
Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it, man.
I can't believe that this circle can come full circle and we're here. What an honor to be here. But to just get right down to it, I've been doing quite a few things over the last few decades here. I've grown a business now. It's a charitable gaming business. We started it in Virginia about 13 years ago. It's a spinoff from bingo. One of my aunts used to take me and my brother and her daughters to bingo in Shreveport every weekend.
Where at in Shreveport?
Kings Highway.
Yep.
It was the only bingo in town.
Okay.
She would take us because she would get a table, 2 tables, and would put all these bingo sheets in front of us, and we would play bingo. The only difference is when our card had bingo, we would have to slide it down to her, and she would yell bingo because we were underage. So, but how ironic I come and get into the business, which is now called charitable gaming.
Okay.
Recently opened up a company called Championship Gaming.
Mm-hmm.
It is a bingo distributor here in the state of Texas, the great state of Texas. But I've been doing this for the last 13 years in Virginia.
Right.
And we started in Virginia. Virginia is actually the hub for charitable gaming. It's the electronic gaming part of it that I'll get into, but you have to have a bingo license in order to do it.
Okay.
So you say, well, what is charitable gaming? A lot of organizations, retired veterans of war organizations, VFWs, American Legions, Moose Lodges, Elks, MVets, they're all over this country. War veterans who now have their own private clubs that they take their family and friends to and still give back to their communities. Mm-hmm. They were very famous for having bingos in their sessions. Well, about 13 years ago, the state of Virginia opened up electronic gaming. And what we did was we simply put the bingo phase of it electronically, put it into a cabinet in a machine, looks very similar to a slot machine. And we created games, cartoon characters, images, and it also became like a hub for, I don't want to say it's slot machines, but it was private games where they can play. The jackpots are regulated through the state, so no one could get in trouble playing too much or anything like that. So really changed the dynamics of bingo because bingo was dying out.
So how does it work electronically? How does bingo work on the electronic side?
Great question. So basically what we did was during bingo sessions, there are tons of people that would walk around and they would sell you these little bitty cards. They call them pull tabs, where instead of you scratching it off with a coin, you just snap them back. If they got 3 cherries in there, 3 C's or 3 Tommies, you win that prize. So basically, we took that paper version of it, flipped it, and turned it into electronic version of it, and called it an electronic pull tab.
Okay.
Now, instead of playing with the paper part of it, you're now electronically. A lot of the companies were manufacturers. They were out of California or on the East Coast. And so you had guys that were very talented that could create images, create software games, and you would download them on the machines, and both, you actually got a cabinet to play. It really changed the trajectory of bingo, like I said, because it was slowly dying. Mm-hmm. Grandmothers were not going anymore. And to get young veteran or to get young military people that were coming back from wars mm-hmm. to get active into their communities, you needed something that they could relate to. Mm. Electronically, that was their world. So they wasn't going back to getting daubers and paper bingo.
Right.
So we just transferred it into electronically, and it just swept the nation. And so here we are 13 years later. And after traveling and opening up in several states, decided here that kind of wanted to do the same thing back home in Texas here. Mm-hmm. And so we created Championship Gaming. I'm actually licensed to become one of those distributors. And
that's
so
awesome.
Pretty excited about that. I get to hear that I'm my own boss right now. So the only thing I can't do right now is fire myself. But it's a lot of hard work, but it's well worth it because I'm also giving back to communities.
That's great.
And helping people, which is one of my fortes.
So how are you going about, so you're getting these machines into different locations, right? So I guess you're having a cold call probably or visit. I mean, how are you drumming up the business?
Well, I figured being back in Texas, and obviously through the introduction, you said winning an NBA championship mm-hmm. here in Texas. What better way than to get in front of people? I love people.
Yeah.
So I do like the cold call. And usually after a couple minutes of talking with them around Texas and telling a little bit of story here and there, people realize the background a little bit. And so it's been a little bit well received. Mm-hmm. And so, because they're not quite introduced to the electronic side of it here in Texas.
Okay.
So this way I kind of get in and kind of give them some guidelines on how this works. And so far, so good. You know, it's been moving. Got some great help from some people back in Virginia with this. So it's a slow process, but it's a very prominent one because, as you know, Texas will be getting gaming soon. That is the word that
right.
We're probably going to be getting our own casinos
it's
before.
Time.
It is about time.
Long
and
overdue.
What better way to know that this has worked in other states, that I believe this is going to be a gold mine here in Texas before long.
So you've been in the gaming industry a long time. So how did you get into the gaming industry initially? Because you used to work for LeBerge, right?
And Horseshoe.
Right.
Yes.
So how did you get into that initially in that industry?
Well, I actually, after retiring from retiring from professional basketball, because I think I have to be honest, it was more life than just the NBA. I played mm-hmm. in several countries.
Right.
Played in the minor leagues. So wherever there was a ball being bounced, I was there. Mm-hmm. But right after I retired from playing professional basketball, I went down to Lake Charles, Louisiana to visit a very, very good friend of mine. He's a late legend in himself right now, a gentleman by the name of Larry Lipinski.
Okay.
I actually was going for an assistant coaching job down at Lamar University in Beaumont. And so I decided to spend the weekend in Lake Charles and be ready for my job interview on Monday. Beaumont, Houston's about 90 miles from Lake Charles.
Right.
Highway 10. So I'm meeting with the former general manager there. We're having lunch. And as we're eating in the restaurant, all of a sudden he hears several people call my name out. And they stopped and said, "We're sorry to interrupt you, but he's one of our Houston Rockets players that mm-hmm. won a championship. Can my kids take a picture with them?" Then another person showed up, and then another person showed up. So by now, they're asking the general manager to take pictures with their phone of me. I was a little embarrassed because the general manager shouldn't be taking pictures, but he caught an idea. Mm-hmm. So after about 10 minutes with those folks, he said, "I think you would be a great casino host." Mm-hmm. I said, "Well, what's a casino host?" He says, "Someone that takes care of customers and makes sure that their stays are well taken care of." So he said, I know you're here for a job interview at Lamar, but I want to make you an offer that you can't refuse. He says, because our population in Lake Charles is 90% Houston, and most of these people know you. So I got to thinking over the weekend. In fact, he said, just take the whole weekend and relax. So he gave me perks to be around the resort the whole weekend. Got ready to leave Sunday, made a phone call to him, said, I'll take that offer that you gave me. I never made the interview at Lamar University, by the way. Billy Tubbs was the coach there at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I got into the industry. Spent about 10 years in the gaming industry. Was at LaBerge and came up to Shreveport back home after about 7 years down there and started at the Horseshoe. Met another mentor of mine, was a player at the Horseshoe, the late, great Judge Farhat. And he introduced me to electronic gaming. He opened up a business in Virginia and said, you would be a great ambassador to lead my team and open up this business, charitable gaming. And it's kind of how I got to Virginia. Ended up spending the next 10 years there, flying back and forth. Moved my family a couple years there. I've run a couple companies for people. Virginia's like my second home to me now. And that's kind of the spin off how I got championship gaming started.
So you paid your dues, and now look where you're at. You've got your own setup now.
Right.
It's funny how you say that the gentleman told you that you'd be a great host, and I know our listeners, our audience who's going to be seeing this are going to see exactly why, because I've known Larry. You're going to see his personality come through. You're going to see why he is such a great host, why he's such a great guy. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you, because, really people outside of your family and closest friends don't really have an idea of who Larry Robinson is. That's going to change today.
Oh.
That's going to change today. So we're going to talk about, we've got a lot to talk about, a lot of questions to ask you. Before we dive in deep, white hot topic right now, Bronny James is the story of the NBA right now. And I bring that up because you played in the NBA, you're a father, you have a son who plays pro ball.
Correct.
So I want to get your take on the Bronny James situation, his story.
I'll give you the player and I'll give you a dad's perception of it.
Perfect.
Both of them are the same. I think it's great. I think it's terrific for our league. Our league is a business. I know we love sports because we love sports, but at the end of the day, it's no different than a law firm, a dentist office, a company of a big CEO that owns a company. So what we're seeing right now is really remarkable. It's history in the making.
Yeah.
I know people are caught up on the numbers and what he scored at USC and all of that jazz. That matters not. And I'll tell you why. Because I played a few years overseas as well. I played in France. I played in Spain. Played in Venezuela. Played in the Philippines. I had 15, 16-year-olds on my French and Spanish teams that were professional basketball players. Luka started playing pro ball at 15, 16 years old in Europe, right?
Right.
And look at what he's become now.
Yeah.
So Bronny James is about to get some of the best guidance a ball player could ever have, being in those locker rooms, being on those courts, being taught the fundamentals of the professional world, not just the basic of fundamentals. So I think it's great. And who better than LeBron James' son to try to come in? I mean, we're going to lose LeBron here in the next few years. We need to brace ourselves and understand that. And I just think that is a little piece of LeBron that we're going to still have. They tried it with Michael and his sons a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a bad topic. I think it's great for the game. As long as Bronny accepts the fact that he has to work hard just like everybody else does. Nothing, this isn't given to him.
And I'm rooting for him, right?
I am too.
I think by all accounts, he's a really good kid, fantastic athlete as we know. He gets a lot of hate too. Obviously, I think that's because people who are not fond of his dad, that I think that hate's unfairly trickling down on him.
Okay.
And I think that's, I don't know if that's putting pressure on him or what, I don't know. But I mean, he seems to be playing better now. The last couple of games, he's playing a lot better. Looks more comfortable.
Sure. What people don't understand is that's pressure in itself.
Right.
This kid's probably not had any sleep because I'm going to the NBA. Sometimes we got to be careful what we ask for.
Right.
Also, we got to remember there was a couple years ago where the people that were hating on him were loving him because remember this kid had a scare about a heart situation,
Yep.
and the world stopped in also, and we were afraid for him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's shook back from that. So we're getting what we're expecting. It's just kind of been moved up warp speed a little bit.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay,
Accelerated. Yeah.
Okay, he didn't score 20 points at USC, but there's several guys in the NBA that didn't score 20 points a night. But the genes that he has, the gift that his father's given basketball over the next 20 years has everything to do with it. And like I said, this is a business too. So if the Lakers have a chance to keep a little bit of LeBron James in the arena,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's only fair. And as far as being a dad, I would have loved to do that with my kids.
Yeah.
I've had two sons play professional basketball. Shout out to Justin
Talk about
and Larry.
them. Yeah. All you want. Talk about them.
Yeah. So, great guys, college graduates as well too. Growing up, I didn't want my kids to chase the basketball dream because I knew how hard it was for me to make it.
Right.
It's not easy. And no parent wants to see their kid disappointed and not making something that they want to try. So I literally was pushing my kids away from it because not that they couldn't play, but everyone talks about the NBA championships and everybody talks about the CBA championships, the overseas things. But I got cut several times in the NBA. I lost jobs in the NBA, lost contracts. That's hard to shake back from.
Yeah.
A lot of All-Americans that I played along didn't make it to the NBA. So, and that's a tough road. Some people are able to come back from it and some people aren't. So I didn't want Larry and them to experience that part. But no matter what I said, they were still out there hooping. They were still out there playing.
They had the same passion that you had for it.
And they developed the craft too. No, I can't. And actually it's worked out good for them.
Yeah.
They both have experienced jobs overseas, playing professional basketball. And Larry's still chasing that dream right now. He's and again, for him, had a major injury at the University of New Orleans. And we had surgery done towards ACL.
Yep.
Back in my day, if an ACL or an Achilles was torn, your career's over with. But an amazing doctors, the Pelicans doctors, put him back together for us. We basically had to start all over again walking.
Or you wore the huge braces.
Or you
remember the big braces you had to wear?
I do, but
the big bulky ones.
Wearing those and trying to play ball in,
you
might as well just give it up. You can't move. But we worked hard. We learned how to walk all over again. I remember teaching my son how to walk on crutches.
I didn't know any of this. Wow.
I kept it in. We didn't announce it because I could sense he was slipping into depression. Because again,
really,
we never really understand what an injury can do to a person. And when you're limited to what you can do with something that you've grown up doing all your life, it's kind of been snatched away a little bit from you. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Especially as an elite athlete too, when we've had that taken from you,
right.
And that's like, what do I do?
Right. And they never saw me with those type of injuries. They've seen broken fingers,
right?
Ankles swollen and things like that. But to literally have to learn how to walk again was tough. But Larry's one of my best friends in the world. I saw his determination. He was willing himself to get back. Now this kid at 26 years old and had a chance to play overseas in Turkey. Actually had a great rookie season, averaged over 20 points, shot 44% from three-point line, had just a phenomenal season, still chasing that.
And he's only 26. He's still young.
Still young. Got people calling, we're looking at jobs for him right now. So a lot smarter today than he was back then. Anyone would call with a job opportunity and Larry is ready to go. He didn't care what the temperature was like, the climate, where it was. But I see him still reaching that pinnacle of even one day being in the NBA. He's just that good.
And you're rocking some merch too, I see.
And between that, to show you the smarts that he has. He developed his own clothing line. Larry had a difficult time being Larry the Third, chasing Larry the Second around home. Dad was a pretty good basketball player, as you gave some of the accolades growing up. I sent Larry to the same high school that I was at. In fact, all of my older kids went to Airline their first 2 years of high school. Everyone transferred to Bossier High their junior and sophomore year. And he had to make one of the most difficult calls he could. He had to call me the summer going into his junior year that he wanted to transfer from Airline.
And what was the reason? Just
he said that I need to go be me.
his own identity.
Everyone is wanting me to be like you here, and your jersey's retired in the rafters. You have your team was 30-0. Got history here. I can't go anywhere. People are saying you're Larry Robinson's son, and no one's knowing Larry the Third.
Really? He was dealing with all that
at 15, 16 years old. So I had to, set my ego aside because I wanted my kids to follow my footsteps there. I'm a Viking through and through. And after a long talk with his high school coach one night, we stayed up to about 1 o'clock talking, and he just reassured me that Larry was gonna treat him just like he did the other kids. Probably was the best move he made. He goes on and have a great junior year, but he did one thing that I wasn't able to do in high school. He won a state championship.
And y'all went 30-0.
And we went 30-0. Not only did he win the state championship, they won the state championship, but he was crowned most valuable player of the state tournament, MVP of that.
Good for him.
It was great. And so he always has one up on me, to tell me, when we start talking hardware, you may have the biggest hardware, but I got the one that you never did get. But he, terrific guy. Justin as well, too. JP, my oldest son, had a great career. Also went to Bossier, went to Grambling State first, transferred to North Texas State, met his significant other there. Now it's his wife. He has 3 beautiful kids. They live here. And my daughter Jasmine, 6-footer, played at Louisiana Tech under Teresa Weatherspoon, was a terrific power forward for her. So basketball has been part of our lives for a long time, and they've all done well. Everyone's graduated, and so I'm very thankful for that
proud
part.
Papa.
Very proud Papa, and a very proud Paul. I got some younger ones around me now. Jasmine gave me my first grandson. I have a 10-year-old.
God, it's been a long. I did not know any of this.
I have a 10-year-old grandson. His name is King. His real name is Tyrone. He's named after his father, but we call him King for short. And then there is Jordan, there is Nola and Naomi, and so we're pretty tight knit family.
Shout out to the grandkids.
Absolutely, shout out to them. And Jordan and King are basketball players,
right? Of course.
Shout out to Jordan. He just won another little AAU championship here in Texas. So they keep me busy too. It ain't just business. It's life of a dad, life of a grandpa too.
Good. Well, so I don't really know your origin. I don't know your family roots. So let's kind of go all the way back to the beginning. So were your parents from Louisiana? Your grandparents from Louisiana?
Yes.
Everybody's from Louisiana.
Roots are from Shreveport, Bossier. My father was from Shreveport. My mother's from Bossier.
Okay.
My mother's 3 years older than my dad. So my mom was 20 when my dad met her. He was 17. And he was crossing the bridge coming over liking this older woman. And they got pregnant with me. And both grandmothers, my grandmother on my mom and my dad's side, took them in front of the justice of the peace. And this part of the story they tell me, they did not want me to come into the world without my parents being married. And so the judge made a little funny to my mom and said, I really could arrest you because he's underage and you're 20. So you guys have to get married in order for this to work. But my parents are from there. My grandparents are from Louisiana as well, too. Louisiana is where I'm born and raised. Shout out to the boot. Louisiana, I love it. I'm even starting to talk a little slang when I get back further south like I am now. It was great for me. So we are from there. And my father is no longer here, but my mom is still here. And my mother's parents are gone and my dad's parents are gone.
Okay.
So still have one of my parents left. Tons of relatives, family and friends. I have a sister. I have 3 other brothers from my dad after my mom and dad went their separate ways as well. So I still have a lot of ties in Louisiana, and I'm not too far away being here in Texas now, which they're okay with that.
Only 3 hours from Shreveport, right? Basically Dallas to Shreveport, roughly 2.5, 3 hours.
It is, just depending on what time of the day you take off to go there, you know. And hey, I'm only 4 hours away from Houston, so I still get to go back to H-Town and kind of bask in the glory of being a Rockets.
So did you play, growing up, before you went to high school, the airline, did you play any other sports, or was it just always basketball?
No, I was a 3-sport guy. Played football and baseball.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know this, but baseball was my first true love. We had this league back home called the Dixie Summer League Baseball.
Okay.
And I got drafted in a draft. I put my name at Parks and Recreation, and they heard about me on the basketball court. And this coach, who was a police officer by day but was a baseball coach by night, he drafted me, his first pick ever in the draft. We didn't have a car to get me to and from practice. And he called my mom and he said, listen, your son's going to be special. I'll come pick him up every day for practice and for games if you'll let him play. Now, again, it's not in the neighborhood, but he'll be okay. It's in another neighborhood, but I'll take him. And so baseball became my first true love. I was a pitcher, first base. Okay. I did play football clear up until I got to high school. So Green Acres, I went to Green Acres Junior High in Bossier City. Okay. Let me say that. I went to Butler Elementary in elementary school. So let me say that as well. And when I got to high school, the varsity basketball coach, the first day of school, saw me coming into school, asked me, was I going to try to play football? And I told him, yes, sir, I am. He said, no, I don't think you're going to play football. I said, why, coach? He said, we're going to need you to come into this gym, and we're going to need you to convert all your talents to basketball.
So how tall were you at that time?
I was about 6'2".
Okay.
Yeah, about 6'2", 6'2 and a half.
Okay.
I also went to high school with a phenomenal golfer by the name of David Toms.
Okay.
David Toms and I went to junior high together. Green Acres. He's a year older than me. David also played other sports too, but when he got the airline, his other careers were over too. He went straight to golf. I went straight to basketball. Great choice. So basketball became it. So I gave up baseball and football as a freshman. And then over the next couple of years, I went from 6'2" to 6'4". And then the start of my senior year, I got a whole nother inch. I was 6'5", 6'5 and a half. And boom, I was tall, slim, and could really play basketball. So
talk about that 30-0 season. Was that your senior year?
My senior year. Okay. Tommy, we had 7 seniors on the team. We all went from junior high clear up to high school together. So we all were kind of like played basketball from 6th grade all the way up to our senior year. So we were very experienced. They made a change in coaches the start of my senior year. And we got a great man to come in and Coach Joe St. Andre. I just went and visited him back home about 2 weeks ago. Coach, I'm praying for you. I miss him dearly. He helped change my life, helped change a lot of guys' lives.
In what ways?
Well, we were not going nowhere with the offense we were running my freshman through junior year. I was a decent junior year. I was probably a two-star player at the time. He changed the offense, and he gave me the freedom to get out in the lanes and run. We didn't have to wait to pull it up to the point guard to get the ball to set the offense up. We were pressing. We used to use a 1-2-2 trap, speed the game up. Me and a guy by the name of John Russell, one of my great high school teammates, Gerald Gladney, Daryl Fowler, Chris Hammonds, We all were good on the ball defenders, but we really was pressing a lot of teams. A lot of high school teams wasn't doing that.
Okay.
So he changed the offense, made me the center of attention, and I went from 16 points a game to 23 and a half points my senior year, 12 and a half rebounds. And as far as the record of 30-0, we really didn't know what we were doing till about the 21st game of the season when we broke the city record.
Really?
The city record was 20-0. And when we beat, I think it was Green Oaks High School, and we broke that record. Then we realized we were onto something special. We became little rock stars. Everywhere we went, we had to have, we had sheriff cars following us going
Really?
out. It became pretty phenomenal to see back in the 80s, because here's this school coming. We're traveling to these small towns, playing, buses of people coming. The gyms were packed everywhere we went, because after we got to 21, it was just adding to the record. And so my senior year was probably one of the greatest high school seasons a guy could have. Everything went right for me. Every tournament we played in, we won. I was voted MVP, except the last game of the playoffs to get to the state championship rounds. We get an injured player and played a guy by the name of David Benoit down in Leesville. He actually ended up playing for the Jazz for a few years. We beat him early in the season, and they say karma is a you-know-what. So they knocked us out of the playoffs, and life for the rock stars was kind of over with after that. But junior college came after that. Went to Eastern Oklahoma State Junior College, Tommy. And
were you highly recruited? Larry, I didn't cut you off, but yeah, just talk about the recruitment for you at high school.
It was, I was getting a lot of attention, but I was a small town kid.
Yeah.
A little nervous about going to the big cities. Grades were fine. And I lost someone very dearly to me my junior year. We can get into that
Absolutely.
a little bit
go
well
ahead.
too.
Absolutely.
I lost my younger brother at 16 from a malignant brain tumor.
I didn't know that. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that at all.
Which is the reason I've created this foundation called the Larry Robinson Family Foundation for kids with malignant brain tumors. We had no idea growing up what a malignant brain tumor was, but it was a form of cancer that had developed on the brain. And the way the doctor described it to us and to me was, it was like chewing bubble gum. And after you get it soft, where you've chewed it enough, you take several straws and you poke the straws through the gum. And then you try to pull the straws out of the gum. Well, the gum is wrapped around the straws. You can't pull it. The only thing you can do is just start to cut it. So that cyst became like the bubble gum. And all they could do is just chip away from it, but it would grow back. And so David was diagnosed at 11 with a malignant brain tumor. They only gave him a couple years after that. But it goes to show you what God can do. God gave us 5 more years with him, gave me an opportunity to really understand what my brother was going through, gave me a reason to live and to want to do something with my life. So I tell the story that I'm nowhere near the man I am today if he wasn't a sacrificial lamb for me back then. And God and I've had our conversations with it, and we've all made peace with it because we know David's at a better place. But I was so driven my senior year, Tommy, that's what drove me to be good, because he was no longer watching me play. He used to come to all my games and sit down. Yeah. And so I wanted to not only be good for myself, but I wanted to be good for my younger brother too. And that's kind of how the resurgence of Larry Robinson happened. I had something to fight for, to live for, and it was to make him proud of me. So I carry that with me throughout my whole career, and it ended up being pretty sweet for me with that.
I never knew that. God bless him, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so sorry.
It's
because he is in a better place.
He was.
I mean, we've been through it with our family. The suffering's done. Selfishly we want them here,
Sure.
but
sure.
we know they're, like you said, they're a much better place.
It took me a while to truly understand it, but I also start studying malignant brain tumors. I also understood about them, but I also understood what this meant. Like I said, I had to lose something very great in order for me to come out of the shell that I was in, because I was just okay with just being just another player playing for the Vikings. But, God had something more for me. I didn't know I was going to be an NBA player or a professional basketball player till I got to college at Centenary. I was just going off to college to get a degree, play ball, get scholarships. And I walked into the gym one day and I looked at the scores table and there were 2 NBA scouts' names. One was from the Bullets and one was from the Supersonics.
Is this a Centenary when you're Centenary?
Okay. Yeah. So I remember walking over to Pat Boris's office and like, yo, who are those guys? He said, those guys are here to see you, Rob. And I'm like, see me? He says, yeah, they're critiquing you for the NBA. And it just dawned on me then that, I must be playing pretty good if guys then flew all the way from Seattle and Washington to watch me play. Had a pretty good game that night too, but that's when I realized that I have an opportunity to be something special with this.
So what brought you to Centenary from Eastern Oklahoma? Now you're back home to Centenary. And before you answer that real quick, there was an article about your son Larry in 2016, Shreveport Times. You probably remember the article possibly,
Yeah,
but there's a
that.
quote from you that said, "My heart is always going to be at Centenary Gym. Centenary made me become the man that I am. I learned how to live in the world because of Centenary. I was exposed to a lot of cultures and learned how to conduct myself." So talk about that.
Yeah. Growing up in Shreveport, Bossier, you could always see the Gold Dome from anywhere coming down Uri Drive, Kings Highway. And we knew it was a school for engineering. We knew it was a school for doctoring. We knew it was a very smart school, liberal arts college. So, growing up, you never envisioned that that's where you're going to be going to school. Just thought that was a place for smart people to go. But the reason I said that is because from the day I stepped on the campus, I wasn't just an athlete. I wasn't just a basketball player. I got held accountable for my classroom work, how I conducted myself on campus, on and off campus. I was told by the dean and the athletic director, "You're one of the faces of Centenary." That's the first time someone had ever told me that. So watch how you move around campus and off campus because, Tommy, certain areas around Kings Highway was rough parts of town over there as well too. And, they didn't want me to get in any type of trouble, but they also wanted me to be smart about how I did things. So I really grew up there because I changed the way I looked at life, period. If I didn't feel like going to class back in junior college, I didn't go to class because I was a star basketball player. But I wanted to go to class at Centenary. I got up. I had people knocking on my door, making sure I got up to go to school, go to class, and really changed my perspective. And then I started meeting different cultures and hearing things and listening to things, how people's lives were, where they came from. So I think it all spins back around because I became a world traveler with this basketball thing.
Right.
I started meeting people from their countries when I went to play and was like, I met a guy from South Africa, soccer players, or I met a guy from the Philippines. And then it became like, I understand what I was going through at Centenary. So it changed my life to prepare me for life that I didn't know what was ahead for me.
What was your initial reaction when that gentleman told you that you're basically the face of, the university, the college? I mean, what was your initial reaction to that?
I was a little shocked at first, and the way he put it is because there was a lot of hype to get you here from the junior college. I was a junior college All-American at Eastern Oklahoma State College. Oklahoma was really good then with Billy Tubbs, Eddie Sutton, Oklahoma State, Nolan Richardson with the Arkansas Razorbacks won the national championship. Yep. They were recruiting me then right out of Oklahoma. And so when I came back home, thanks to Tommy Vardaman, my college coach, and my mom who tricked me. I remember him. Tommy Vardaman, my coach is 82 years old, and I still go down to Lindale, Texas, maybe once a month and play golf with him. He lives out in this resort area here, retired with him and his wife, Sharon, and it still looks great. He came and played in my golf tournament last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I was going to go to one of those schools, and so I nicely declined the letter of intent to come to Centenary. And he pulled out a cell phone and he called my mom right there on the spot. And she said, "Babe, you got to come home. You told them you were going to come play at Centenary. They need you." And I just kind of looked at him like, "You tricked me, Coach."
And that was it. When Mama said,
that's
so it's done.
That was done. So when he told me that, I was a little surprised about it. But I also felt the leadership to be a leader in the community, leader on campus. There were other brown-skinned guys like myself around. So if I set the precedence, then we won't be labeled to be bad characters or, don't know how to conduct ourselves. So I took the challenge to being one of those guys, and it ended up being in my favor.
I remember Coach Varden, because I actually went to, I think I was in 8th grade in summer visiting my sister in Shreveport, and I went to the Centenary basketball camp. And I think it was Willie Jackson.
Willie Jackson
was one of the coaches there.
Yeah.
I remember meeting Coach Varden, but a one-on-one champ of the camp.
Oh, wow.
One-on-one. Thank you very much.
Okay.
8th grade.
Absolutely.
So I have the medal.
That means you didn't pass the ball very much, Tommy.
Probably. Back then, I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Was a gunner. Was a gunner. You can't win one-on-ones if you're passing it.
Not at all. Not at all. No. So talk about so at Centenary, who were like the big teams that y'all played, or some of the big players around that time that you got to play against? Yeah.
Division I basketball back then was really, really talented. It was a lot of big name schools. We crossed paths with back then Baylor was it still is a basketball school. Baylor University, Texas A&M was a big basketball school back then. Mississippi State out of the SEC was really tough then. I played against Luke Longley. He was down at the University of New Mexico. Yeah, he was 7 foot in college, and he was unstoppable. So to see him become the guy he was with the Bulls, who only averaged 4 or 5 points there again, this guy was so dominant at the University of New Mexico, but he knew how to play his role when he got to the Bulls. LSU, Louisiana Tech was very strong then. We had our conference. We had Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Centenary, UTSA, Texas San Antonio. But we went up to big classics. We played against Washington State, University of Idaho. So we were traveling all over the world, even though we were one of the smallest Division I schools. We didn't turn down competition. So there was a lot of really fine players that played, a lot of great schools that we played against. And Centenary used to be, kind of just an average basketball team.
Right.
They had fine players, but there was never really a thumb on the team that stood out. And Willie Jackson was a great player for them. Obviously, Robert Parish was as well, too, but I'm talking about during my era. And so that's what was really missing, just a guy that you can get the ball to, and he's either going to make a play for himself or he's going to make a play for someone else. And so we turned up the winning a little bit there. We actually broke a few records. My senior year there, we went 22-8. We won the first conference championship there. And we lost the bid to go to the NCAA tournament against Arkansas Little Rock, which was another great school in that era. Also, that was our bitter rivalry down there. For whatever reason, we would always play the conference championship in Barton Coliseum in Little Rock, and I still cringe to this day.
Tough place to play.
Tough place to play. It was always 7-on-5. I'll just say that it was always 7-on-5 there. But really, 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 really good players. Good league. It was the Trans-American Athletic Conference, the TAC. So it was D1 talent.
Yeah.
Stetson University, just thinking of schools as I'm going back into my memory here. Just a lot of quality D1 basketball players. And so ended up becoming the newcomer of the year and then the MVP of the league there, and again, just finding my niche as I went along.
So, staying on Centenary for a second.
Sure.
So, before we get in your NBA career, which we're going to get into in a second, there's another Centenary basketball legend that we're going to talk about, an NBA Hall of Fame cousin of yours. I'll let you introduce him and talk about just and what he's meant to you and how he's kind of influenced your basketball career.
Well, the person that you're talking about is none other than the Chief, Robert Parish. Robert Parish is actually my blood second cousin, my mom's first cousin. His father on his dad's side, and my grandmother. That's how the relationship was tied in. And Robert was one of my favorite players even growing up. Even before I knew we were cousins, even before I got a chance to play with him playing for the Boston Celtics. Because mind you, he's 16, 17 years before me getting to Centenary.
Okay. When did you know y'all were cousins, though? When did you find that out?
I knew we were relatives because his father used to always come to Bossier City to see my side of the family. His dad was great entertainer. He used to come liven up the Sunday evening get-togethers outside, whether we were frying fish outside, playing cards, dominoes. He would always come over and be the life of the party. But I knew we were relatives, but Robert was into his pro career at the time. Okay. So he wasn't home.
Okay.
So I knew we were relatives, but the actual connection didn't happen until I got on into my NBA career. In fact, my second year in the league, I end up going to the Boston Celtics training camp. They had a player, well, they had one roster spot that was available, and my agent and I was trying to make a decision, would I go back to the Bullets or go to Boston? I went to Boston. And Chris Ford was the coach at the time there, and this was the last year of the Big Three, Kevin McHale, Robert Parish, and Larry Bird. This was the year Bird back was going out. So here I am, this 22-year-old kid. Not only I made the team, and the practices used to be the greatest 5-on-5 games. We used to play in this Catholic church in the basement. And I remember one time Chris Ford switched the starting lineup a little bit, and he put me on the same team with Bird.
Oh my God.
The great, Brian Shaw was there, and then we lose Reggie Lewis.
Right. Yep.
Died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
And so we switched the teams up, and I ended up playing with those guys, and I think Ed Pickney was our 5 guy, and Robert and McHale and a couple other, D. Brown was on the other team.
Brown, yeah.
We actually beat them, and I'll never forget, Bird said, Bird was a trash talker, or still is a trash talker, maybe.
Legendary.
Walking off the court that day, I made a few shots. We won the game. And he says, Chief, I guess you're not the best player to come out of Centenary.
I'm not surprised he said that.
Well, it's surprising,
I'm not surprised.
Chief laughed at it, and so did I, because nowhere near was I the best player. He was obviously head and shoulders above anybody that ever played. Robert was so humble, but he was such a terrific basketball player. He was so gifted. And what I liked about him was he didn't talk the talk. He just walked the walk. A lot of guys come in the gym woofing, and
he's a silent assassin.
Every single day.
That's what he did.
Every single day. And, obviously the All-American status and being the number 1 pick in the draft and things like that. But to have the longest career in the NBA until Vince Carter just recently broke that,
right.
Speaks volumes of how great he was as a ball player. And he's even a greater person off the court. Now, that we're relatives. He has a younger sister by the name of Liz. Shout out to my cousin Liz, his baby sister. We're like brothers and sisters too. Right. But we all get together at the family house sometime, and we play dominoes and hang out. And Robert's one of the funniest guys. But it is so unique that I get to see him on a side where people don't get to see.
Right.
And he still gets up 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, jogs down to the corner store. He does yoga. Robert can put a 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle together like no other. I mean, such a smart man. So it's just amazing to see him life after basketball. He's now going back and forth up to Boston doing things with the Celtics. So I'm super happy for him, and it feels good to know that I'm connected to him because we're the only two guys to ever come out of Centenary to play in the NBA.
And to finally have that relationship with him that you didn't really get to have before.
Early on, yes,
exactly.
Yes. And he took me on his wing when I got to Boston. I don't know if I think there was a picture. I don't know if I sent it to you, but the big three, we had the team locker room, but McHale, Bird, and Parish each had their own separate dressing room. How crazy was that? But Red Auerbach had those guys, their own locker room. And clearly that was the beginning of the big three. If I had to say, I know the Lakers had their big three too, but those guys there were just phenomenal. But we took a picture together in Robert's dressing room when I first got there. And I cherish that picture to this day. I was this young 22-year-old kid. My big cousin was standing over me. And so it was kind of like a big brother mentality, but he let me earn my stripes. And, he'd always give me great advice, and we're still tight to this day.
Being 22 years old on the Boston Celtics with those three guys, I can't imagine just the lessons that you learned and just everything that you learned from those three guys. I mean, what were some of the biggest lessons you learned from Bird, McHale, or Parish on that team?
Be one of the first people to show up to practice and be one of the last people to leave. Mm-hmm. People see the work on the basketball court. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parish was never late for practice. And even when practice was over with, they still put the work in after practice. They wasn't trying to get dressed, go hit the malls or go hit the streets, go out, spend money. They were working on their craft. So you couldn't be a young player, get done with practice, and then head to the locker room and shower. You had to put the work in too. So their work ethic was phenomenal. That's why they were champions like they were. Always great advice on and off the court. None of those guys liked the limelight off the court. So it wasn't like, you getting ready to walk out because there's a party down the street. Some player is giving a party at this. Right. That wasn't them. So they never encouraged me to want to do those things. But that was the whole team too. They set the culture, and, Kevin Gamble, Brian Shaw, Reggie Lewis, D Brown, Kevin Pritchard, myself, we just kind of followed the trend. If they're not doing it, we don't do it. Now, Bird's back was going out.
Right,
so,
at that time, yep.
For a 22-year-old that was flying on the plane with these guys, when we did hit those major cities, Miami, Chicago, I am looking for the bright lights and stuff, but we would have to fly back home after every road game. I remember them putting a bed on the plane for Bird to lay on. So when people saw him laying on the sideline on his stomach,
right,
that was because
he was hurting.
The disc in his back.
Yeah.
So, again, sacrifices that they made, they still wouldn't stop Bird from diving for a loose ball. So you saw greats like that doing it. Why wouldn't you want to do it? Why wouldn't you want to jump out of bounds for a basketball? So they helped me to put that part in my game where coaches was looking for hustle players and guys that would throw their bodies around, and I wanted to be one of those guys too.
So it's kind of like Bronny, kind of how you were saying when we were talking earlier about, how you got that education.
Right.
And he's in a great position to kind of get that almost the same age, kind of trial by fire. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but yeah, I know Bird hated the limelight. I read his autobiography. He even talked about it. He was like, I'm just a basketball player.
That's it.
I want to play basketball. I don't care about celebrities. I don't care about anything. I just want to play basketball, and I want to win. Because, tell me if I'm wrong, but that generation back then, because I'm an 80s kid, I grew up watching amazing basketball in the 80s and 90s. It seemed like winning was more the focus, winning championships that generation. As opposed to, granted, it's a new generation, social media now, everybody wants to, their brand, all this kind of stuff, but it seems like guys were playing for the championships back then.
That's all. I used to tell kids at my basketball camp, I didn't understand the money part of it. I just knew I wanted to play basketball.
Right.
You could take my salary away from me, just don't take my jersey and take my spot off the team.
Yeah.
I want to play. I want to win. Because you got to remember, for high school and college, we played to win. We didn't play for money. We didn't play for those things. We played for the school, the name on the shirt, true enough. But you made your name by winning. And so that just seeped over. I didn't want to lose my jersey at all.
Right.
Never wanted to lose a jersey. But the game has changed. You know, it's elevated. And obviously the money's bigger now than it's ever been.
Right.
I'm kind of like Charles Barkley. I tell my mom and dad, y'all should have waited 10 years later for me. Probably would have been okay, but they didn't. But we have a big joke about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go to the start now of your NBA career. Let's go to the beginning. So the 1990 draft comes around, right? And God, I went back and looked at that draft class. I'd forgotten. It's Derek Coleman.
Yeah.
Gary Payton.
Yeah.
My guy, Chris Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Scott, Tony Kukoc was in that draft.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about the draft because you went undrafted, right?
I did.
In that draft, okay. So this is why this podcast exists, because to go undrafted, and this is your dream to play basketball. What is your mentality now, knowing that, hey, this is my dream, my passion, but no one picked me up. What do I do now? Where do I go? Right? What's your mental kind of state at that time?
Well, if we're going to go back to that, mind you, I had a pretty good senior year.
Right.
And not just talking points. I'm second in the nation in steals behind Gary Payton.
No kidding.
Yes. So,
wow.
So I'm averaging about 23 and a half points a game.
God, that's
eight
amazing.
boards. I've got the all-time steals record, stole 9 balls in one game at Centenary. Record still there. So I'm second in the nation in steals behind Gary. So defensively, my name is there. So the Derek Colemans, Gary Paytons, Chris Jacksons of the world, they were there. I also was being told by NBA scouts. My agent flew in from Los Angeles. I just signed with an agent. And we were getting calls all week long about the draft. Hey, where you're ranked at, we got a pick in the second round. If you're on the board, we're going to take you.
Can you say what team? You're allowed to say what team?
I'm not. I tell you what, for you, I'll do it.
I mean, you don't have to. I don't want you to get in trouble, but you don't have to.
What can they do to me now?
But let's be. Hey, this is an open forum here.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that at all. Seattle Supersonics had a 38th pick in the draft. They were going to take me. I got the Washington Bullets was going to take me. The Denver Nuggets were going to take me. And here we are, setting up an NBA draft party at home. The local channels, 3, 6, and 12, all came out to this restaurant called Teddy Bears. Teddy Bears was owned by a guy that was an alumni for Centenary. News media was everywhere. Family and friends were there. Place was packed. Like I said, my agent was on the phone the whole entire time because he's talking back and forth to these guys. He also had a couple other players that were getting drafted that night too. So we watched the entire draft. And, to not have your name called after being told that for a 22-year-old kid, as soon as the draft was over, all the microphones and cameras was, stuck in my face. What happened? Like, I could tell them what happened. Was a lot of pressure right then because everyone just knew you were going to be drafted. And I didn't get drafted. I own that. But I also believe that was one of the best things that could have happened for me, Tommy, because not getting drafted, we were able to come back the next day. The phone was buzzing. Now that the draft is over with, all those teams called, and each one of those scouts said, listen, you were my pick to get picked, but the GM has the final decision, or the president does, and he chose his player. You were on our list for those players, and I got it. It was a business.
Right.
So now we've got 8 teams inviting me to come to training camp. So I had more teams after the draft asking for me than I did during the draft.
So that night of the draft comes and goes. Was there ever a moment when you said, well, this is it?
It was very brief.
Okay.
I was hurt because my name didn't get called.
Right.
And my father was still there, and I didn't want to talk to the media at first. And he says, "Nope, you're a Robinson. You're gonna go get in front of them. You're gonna tell them what they need to know, and then you're gonna get to work. You're not gonna sulk. We don't sulk. You better not cry. You got girls here. You got people here. You better not cry.
Wrong place to.
Yeah, wrong place to be trying to chastise me, of course. But I didn't. And he said, "You're gonna stand up like a man, and you're gonna take this on the chin." And he said, "I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. I'm your dad. I only got to the 10th grade, son. But you got a chance to make our name be something. So don't let this stop you." So it wasn't that I said, "This is it." It was just, how do I get myself together to go and do this now?
It's almost like you're becoming the face of the family now, like you were the face of Centenary. You're
pretty
in that
much,
position now,
because
but there's bigger stakes now for the family.
I was the first in my family to graduate from college. My father's dad passed away when he was 15. He's the oldest of 5 kids, so he had to drop out of high school.
Yeah.
So not only did my mom marry a 17-year-old, but she married a man that didn't finish high school either. But one of the hardest working men I've ever met in my life. I miss him every day. So we, that next morning, me and my agent was up. The phones were ringing off the hook. And I remember getting a board, and we wrote all 8 teams down and filled out their shooting guards positions and small forwards. And we just kind of started checking off, what their contracts look like, how many more years they can play, if they're a veteran, if they're a young player. And after all that work, we decided to go to the Washington Bullets. There was a guy by the name of Liddell Eccles, who was from the University of New Orleans, had a pretty good second year, but he was holding out for a new contract. So the 2-guard position was wide open. The Bullets were going to take me, but there was a kid out of Virginia Union, which is right there near Washington. AJ English was actually one of my teammates, longtime friend of mine. I couldn't have been more happy for him. He went to a Division III school at the time. He led the country in scoring.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Was it 2 or 3? Yeah, same school Ben Wallace went to.
Okay.
Charles Oakley went to.
Okay.
I want to say that's Division III. It may be Division II. So they took him because he was a local product. I get it. So I decided to go to Washington after turning down all those other teams. And I was one of the last men standing for training camp. We went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania for training camp. That was a shocker. I mean, Coach Wes Unseld, the great Wes Unseld.
Oh, yeah, Wes Unseld, yeah.
He took us away from the busy streets of D.C. and Maryland, DMV area. We ended up in Gettysburg. All we saw were old statues and monuments. We were ducked off into this tiny, tiny hotel with, all these NBA players, and we had training camp there. And every day it was about 25, 30 guys.
Okay.
For a month. But every day, Tommy, someone that you were working out with, the next day he was gone. The next day, this guy was gone. And you didn't even have time to think and ponder about it because it was the business part of it. You just had to get up and make yourself available for the next day. And lo and behold, last day of training camp, walked into the morning session, and we got through practice. We had 2-a-days. Come back for the second session, and Coach Unseld said, before we start practice, I just want to announce this is our official team for the 1990-91 season. Wow. And looked around, and there I was. Made the team. Not only did I make the team, but I'm actually in the starting lineup opening night. And obviously a lot of people see the Michael Jordan picture. That was the first game in the Cap Center.
We have Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that experience.
On the job training
that
right
day.
there.
Let's talk about the day or the hours leading up to
Oh my God.
that game.
Yeah. So the Bulls was coming off their first championship run. And Michael just took the league by storm. He had just won his first championship. Well, let me back up. The Bulls had just won their championship, but he was the face of the league right away. And so the start of the season, we opened the season up on the road against the Miami Heat. This was their inaugural season.
Okay,
we were their first. So the first game was on the road. We had a back-to-back. The next night we had to fly home to play the Bulls, who were returning champions. So
your second
game,
your second career NBA game is against the Bulls, the world champion Bulls,
which is my first home game as an NBA player. Exactly. And leading up to that was practice. And one thing the NBA does is they have a great scouting system. So everyone has scouting reports on every player, their strengths and weaknesses, the whole 9 yards. And so when it came time to give me Michael Jordan's scouting report, I'm scaling through this thing to see the strong points and the weaknesses. There's two books of strong points.
Right.
There is nothing on the weaknesses, zero. But so leading up to it was the day before the game, going through practice, shoot around, and so Coach Wes Unseld decided to give us the starters, their position players who they're going to guard. And at the time, Darrell Walker was our starting point guard from out of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so we're going through the scouting report, and basically went like this. Bill Cartwright was guarded by C.J. Jones, who was our starting center. Him and Purvis Ellison had him. Horace Grant was there 4. So his twin brother, Horace Grant.
Harvey.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, Harvey.
Harvey was going to guard Horace.
Yeah. Okay.
Bernard King was our small forward. So he was guarding Scottie Pippen. So that left 2 people, Paxson and Jordan. Well, Darrell Walker's a phenomenal defender.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to be guarding Paxson, So gets down to it, and Wes is saying, okay, Paxson, he's a spot-up shooter. Michael loves to penetrate and find him for 3-pointers. You gotta stay close to him. If he does take a dribble, make him go left. I'm repeating it because I just know that's who I'm guarding. So I got a towel in my hand, and I'm wiping my face. And as I'm wiping my face, Tommy, I hear Coach Unseld's voice says, Darrell, you got Paxson. So time kind of stopped because there was only one person left. And I remember the towel being in my face like, oh, man. So I pull the towel down. Coach Wes Unseld walks over to me. He puts his hand up on my shoulder, and he says, that leaves Michael. And he said, son, just do the best job that you can. We're going to get you some help. We'll come double as soon as he isolates you. So I knew then business was about to pick up for me. Veterans can be cruel with rookies. So Harvey Grant was my teammate. Harvey called me the night before, and he said, listen, Rook, if you hold Michael to 60, we may have a chance to beat them, okay? Just don't let him get 61. Don't let him get 62. I was nervous all night, but that was probably my coming out party to the league. We won the game by 1 point.
How many did he have?
Michael finished with 28 points on 21 shots.
Okay.
It wasn't a normal night for him. Bernard King had an exceptional night for us. He scored 44 points.
Phenomenal, Bernard King.
One of the greatest small forwards of all time. I don't know. I don't know anybody that could fill a basket up like him in the small forward position. Carmelo Anthony probably could do it. Mid-range game like that, drives to the basket. But he gave the Bulls all they wanted that night. This game is actually on YouTube. You actually can view the whole game.
Ah, okay.
Michael scored 28 that night. We beat him 104-103. I scored 12 points that night. Made a few shots against Michael Jordan as well. I got footage to prove it if people don't believe
it's
me.
on YouTube.
That's right, it is. But what it did for my confidence
Mm-hmm.
to be guarding the greatest player of all time, who, in my eyes, is then and is now and will always be the GOAT. There is no debate about this as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you.
But I held my own. I didn't back down from the competition. And Michael was a fierce competitor. And he gave me my props out on the court a few times.
What did he say?
Part of the scouting report was don't talk to Michael Jordan, because Michael would use any edge, to his advantage.
And that's actually in the scouting report. That shouldn't even. That's a given.
Do not talk to Michael.
That's a given.
Well, you have guys that don't pay attention to that. And I remember throughout the game, the first post up he did on me, he spent baseline and shot a 16-footer, and it hit the front of the rim and bounced over to hit the second part of the rim and bounced out. And we're running down the court, and he says, "Oh, Rook, you're lucky I missed that first one, man. It might be a long night for you." And I didn't say a word.
You didn't say a word.
Didn't say a word. I was still starstruck because there again, I'm on the court with him, and he just tell me good shot, stepped in the lane, got a steal, good defensive move. So he was giving me, words like that.
That's good. Yeah.
Wasn't trash talk, but he sensed that I was fighting for my life to stay in the league, and that game, beating them that night.
So he knew what that meant to you.
Big time.
He knew what it meant to you.
One thing we know about all this great scoring and the slam dunks, but Michael knew his every opponent, whether you were a Hall of Famer or you were a free agent. He knew my strong points and my weak points. I remember him guarding me out on the floor. He was pushing me right because he knew I was left-handed. He didn't want me to go with my left. Mm-hmm. He was forcing me to go to my right. So I just watched how he even played me, and I was learning from him then to be that much competitive. He didn't care that I was a 22-year rookie trying to make the team.
Yeah,
he's gonna bust my butt.
Yeah.
So I appreciated his stuff that he was showing me while I was out there.
So I'm part of the 99.9% who, if I wanted to play against Michael Jordan, I'd have to go to his fantasy camp and spend tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
You played against him for real.
A few times.
So, how big, let me ask you, how fast and how strong is he when you play against him in an NBA game in real action? Physically, what is that like?
Michael was 6'6", 200 and anywhere between 205, 210 pounds. The Pistons made him beef up because they were really, in the late 80s and early 90s, they were really bruising him up.
That's what he got with Tim Grover.
Right.
Yeah.
And Michael changed the complexity of a two guard because most two guards were 6'5", 6'7". We were slim. The Reggie Millers of the world, the Reggie Lewises of the world. But Michael was a big guard. In fact, that's really, I think of how we were shooting guards, but he changed it to big guard because there's a point guard and then there's the big guard. He was very strong. Hands were strong. Hands were huge. He played downhill all the time. And what I mean by downhill is he'd get you past below the free throw line to the baseline, and that's usually power forward type of mentality.
Right.
He was a force to deal with. He played strong, and he used his hands a lot. And because he had gloves,
huge hit.
He could put his hands on you back then. You didn't go a lot of places, but his IQ was just exceptional. Everything that we hear, read, watch is true. It wasn't made up. It's not some movie person that's making him look different. He could really fly. He could shoot, dribble. The guy had everything and still does probably, but he just, and I think the one thing, his willingness to win.
Yeah.
He didn't crack jokes a lot. He was about business. until the game was out of reach. But he was just a great competitor.
Well, as we saw in The Last Dance, I remember before it came out, he even said, look, people are probably not going to like me very much after this.
Right.
But like, who was it? Who was it? No, not Wayne. Who was the other center? Will Perdue.
Yeah.
Said, hey, he was who he was, but I mean, look
what we got.
Yeah. Look what it did for us.
And a lot of guys couldn't do that on their teams, respectively. A lot of guys couldn't come in and challenge the other players without it being a fisticuff or GMs or somebody stepping in. But, the city of Chicago gave Michael Jordan that team when he came from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally his team. So that's why, we had a conversation before we came on air here, talk about when he first got there, all the stuff that was going on, the stuff he had to get rid of. Yeah, because that was the league then. Got to remember the league 10 years or 8 to 10 years before that, it was the ABA.
Right.
So that was
Dr. J.
Yeah, Dr. J and those guys, but there was so much of the fast life going on that it wasn't structured well enough. And so Michael wanted that out of his team. I mean, he didn't come from that. So,
right.
I know there were veterans on the team that thought they had, the weight to carry, but I think that was the best thing that happened. He started helping not only the Bulls get cleaned up, but other teams started doing the same thing.
Yeah. So in 91, you go to Golden State, right? Is that right, 91?
Yes.
For the Warriors.
Yes.
And I don't know if we have the picture or we'll have it up. But I was looking at the guys in the picture, and there was, let's see, you had Tim Hardaway. That was Run TMC days.
That was.
You had Tim Hardaway. They're just right there.
Yeah.
So I can see why you're so happy in that picture. You're right in the front row.
I am. Right next to Mully.
Right.
Mario Elie.
Yeah,
Mitch Richmond, Tim Hardaway. Wow.
Sarunas Marshallonis, the late, great Sarunas Marshallonis on
Shout
the
out to
far right,
yes.
next to Mitch Richmond.
Mitch Richmond and Rod Higgins. Kevin Pritchard behind Rod Higgins. Tyrone Hill.
Yeah.
Alton Lister, Les Jespin, Tom Tolbert.
Jim Peterson, former Rocket.
Jim Peterson, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Believe it or not, the guy right on the end of by Kevin Pritchard, Rod Higgins, that was one of Michael Jordan's, if not still, best friends.
Rod Higgins, yeah.
Rod Higgins, right.
Remember him.
That group of guys right there, that's the first time small ball was kind of introduced to the NBA. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Michael is called one of the toughest guards he's ever had to guard, was Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullin were just phenomenal 1, 2, and 3. We were deadly every night. It didn't make a difference how big the team was, because, we were in the conference with the Seattle Supersonics with Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, and those guys.
Dale Ellis,
all those guys. But this team right here was fun to play with because we were interchangeable. And what I mean by that was, let's say Tim Hardaway had it going. Mitch Richmond or Chris Mullin would bring the ball down. Tim would post up the player. We'd run the offense through the point guard, or say Mitch's got it going. Well, Mully is going to pass the ball into him, split off Tim, set a screen, backdoor. It just was such a cohesiveness. But when it came down, the difference with regular season and playoffs is it becomes half-court basketball in the playoffs. And so you've got to have that big man presence.
Yeah.
And we had some great guys, but they were role players because we had those 3 superstars. But that was a fun team. I'll never forget that team right there. They called me in for a 10-day contract. So back, maybe they still have them today. If you got a guy in the minor leagues, you want to bring him up and give him a look at, you sign him to 10 days.
Right. So
this was January 8th.
Okay.
I'm giving you the whole story about this one because this is very special to me. It's January the 8th. I get in the night before. I check in the hotel. I'll never forget this because it's coming back to me. There was a Hilton in Oakland, and inside the lobby of the hotel, Keith Sweat, the R&B singer, was performing inside. That goes, he hadn't hit the mainstream yet, but he was performing. and live there. And when I checked in, the guy at the desk gave me 2 playbooks about this big, offense and defense, which means I got to go straight to my room and start studying because we play the next day. So we're playing the Seattle Supersonics at home, and you name one of the guys. Dale Ellis was there at the time, and Coach Nelly. I was the first guy off the bench. He wanted to see what I could do because he just signed me to a 10-day. He said, "I want you to go in there. I want you to guard Dale Ellis. Do not let him get the ball. Do not lose him. Don't let him catch no spot up shots." I stuck to him like glue. I mean, I didn't care if I took a shot down on the other end. We won that game. So everybody was happy. We came in the locker room, got dressed. We had to be at the airport we left that night because we had to go to Denver the next night and play. We go to Denver, same kind of setup, and we win the game. So now that's January the 9th, which is actually my late father's birthday.
Okay.
So we win those games. We're 2-0 with me being in my first 10-day contract. So we fly back home to Oakland, feeling good. Everybody's doing well. He gave us the day off. And so we come back the following day. It was a Friday, January the 11th. Now, this is where it gets very special. So January the 11th is actually my birthday. So we're in practicing. And after we got done with all the 5-on-5 drills, the younger players like myself, Kevin Pritchard, Tyrone Hill, Mario, we all stayed out, played some 2-on-2, 3-on-3. And Coach Don Nelson wore cowboy boots. He used to have a dog that walked the floor with him. He leaves the court and goes upstairs. And, we kept on doing what we were doing, had no idea what was going on. So after about 30 minutes, Coach comes back down to the floor. And, he's coming because you can hear the boots clicking on the court. And I'll never forget Coach Gary St. Jean was sitting beside me on the sideline, and he says, "Brooke, we might have some news for you." Well, he wasn't smiling when he said it. And so one of the things when you're coming from the minor leagues to the pros is if a coach wants to talk to you before the 10 days, it usually means we don't need you anymore. And so Nelly comes over, and he said, "I just been upstairs talking to the people upstairs." And he not only was he the head coach, but he was the GM at the same time too. He says, "We're 2-0 with you being on the team." He says, "And you've done everything I've asked you to do." He said, "So we're going to tear up your 10-day contract." And he paused. And he says, "But we're going to sign you for the remainder of the season. So you've got a 1-year contract with us."
How you like that?
My heart just dropped. And the guys knew it. Everybody runs out, grab me, high-fiving me. Everyone was happy for me. So I end up staying for the whole entire season with the Warriors that year. But Lady Luck was on my side. I say Lady Luck, but God was on my side with that too. So now I'm going from the Bullets to the Golden State Warriors. So now this dream is really reality.
Yeah.
I'm an NBA player. I'm on 2 teams in 2 years. I'm good. I'm thinking I'm good. And so the journey of the life continues. But Golden State was very, very good for me. Those guys taught me how to play, small ball, which is a phenomenal.
Obviously, here's the thing. Every opportunity you get, you're making the most of it.
Yes.
And that's the important thing. You're getting the opportunity and you're making the most of it.
That's why if I can go back to what we talked about, Bronny, he's going to have an opportunity. And yeah, I know it's unfortunate that there were guys on his team that had better stats than he did. However, that's life. Life is about opportunities, and you have to seize the moment. And so, that's why I think he's going to be fine, because he's going to be inside those walls where all he has to do is just show up for work. He's going to get better. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I told somebody the other day in a different interview, I would strongly dislike for that kid to be in the G League. They
How
say,
come?
well, they say, why? It would be paparazzi. It would be a circus around him. He couldn't have a bad game. They would eat him alive with that. It's kind of going to be okay to have a bad game here because he's at the top tier. Traveling on buses, being LeBron James' son, playing in the Grand Rapids of the world and places like that. I just think it would have been way more pressure on him in the G League than it would be.
It's going to screw up his psyche.
Well, the psyche's going to get screwed up, and then the attention is not going to be the best of attention for him, you know. And then this kid's not used to that lifestyle. You know, he's not a man, a grown man yet. He's a young man, but he's not a man yet. So, you know, mom's not going to be there, dad's not going to be there. You're going to have to fend for yourself in that type of environment. So,
I mean, I do hope the best for him.
I do too.
You know, and I
too.
think he's going to be okay.
I do too.
You know, because I think he wants to do well.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has that drive from what I gather.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think, you know, obviously his dad's LeBron, but I think he does want to make his own name.
Sure, he does.
I mean, I'm confident that he really does want that.
I don't think he started playing basketball because he was LeBron James's son.
Yeah.
I think he's wanting to do this because he's Bronny James. He's good enough to do it.
Yeah.
Being LeBron's son helps, but I think and we better get ready for Bryce because Bryce is right behind him too. So what are they going to say about this kid? Because I think he's got more talent than his older brother does.
Right.
And I mean, what are they going to say? That LeBron got him in the league again? You know, he's still going to have to produce.
Yeah.
And his dad can't shoot the shots for him, can't dribble the ball for him. So I think he's going to be okay.
I think so. I hope so for him. I hope he. So in '94, here we go. My Houston Rockets. It's the NBA Finals. We're going to start there for a second.
Okay.
And of course, one game was really interrupted by LAPD chasing a white Bronco one evening.
Yes.
I was at a Chili's watching the game. I remember that. I think everybody remembers where they were at. I was at a Chili's watching the game, and then it comes on. But let's talk about how you got to the Rockets, and let's talk about that championship experience.
Sure. Shout out to Rudy T.
Little Rudy T.
One of the greatest coaches I ever played for. Players coach.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the heart of a champion. That sticks with me to this day. So I'm playing in the CBA, which is the minor leagues, for a team called the Yakima Sun Kings, and we're in our playoff round. And the late great Stan Albeck was a scout for the Houston Rockets, and I actually was having a great season, shooting the 3-ball very well, and one of the top 2 guards in the league, if not 1 or 2 at the time. And so Rudy T decides to bring me up. It was probably a couple months before the regular season ended.
Okay.
So I get a call. I'm off to Houston. However, the Rockets were in LA to play the Lakers. So I'm flying from Wyoming. I think that's where the CBA tournament was, or Idaho or somewhere. And I'm off to LA to meet the Rockets. So get there. And first of all, just a great group of guys. Obviously, the great Akeem Olajuwon was the focal point of the team. Very humbling man.
You talk about goats.
Yes, absolutely. It's the reason I wear these hats because I've been around a lot of goats in my time. However, the nucleus of the team, Kenny Smith, Vernon Maxwell, Otis Thorpe, Robert Ory, Big Shot Bob, Sam Cassell, one of my dearest and closest friend. He was a rookie at the time. Mario Elie, our circle came back around because we were with Golden State. And I believe it was because Mario broke his hand. And so Rudy brought me in.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mario's hand got broken. And so right away, go to LA. We're playing the Lakers. Get tossed in the fire early on just to see what I can do, and play really, really well. Akeem Olajuwon was really, really good because I hadn't picked up the offense yet. All I know is you get the ball in the dream and everybody get out the way, basically.
Well, he was the best player on the planet at that time.
Hands down.
The best player on the planet.
Hands down. And we have these barbershop talks all the time because, that was the 2 years Michael was away and the Rockets won back-to-back championships.
It's a whole other conversation.
It is. The only thing I'll say is this. Back then, the ball was inside first and back outside.
100% it was.
And if you had someone like that, the ball had to go inside. So what he was doing is he was putting all of the bigs in foul trouble, every team. However, get there and play really, really well. We lost that game, right? And I'll never forget, we were driving back to the hotel. We were a few blocks away from the hotel, and Rudy T made the driver stop the bus. Now, this is my first day with the team, first night. And Rudy decides he's wanting to walk to think. And Coach Carroll, Dawson, and those guys like, let me walk with you. No, don't want nobody walking with me. I'm getting off here. And you guys going on to the hotel. So, I'd never seen that done before, but he was blaming himself for the loss. I'm not coaching well enough. Like I said, he's a player's coach. Yeah. He ain't, hey, we're winning because of my coaching. So he blamed himself. And, he made it back to the hotel safely. Don't get me wrong, it was a couple blocks away. But he was just wanted some air to think about how he could make the team better, what we need to change, what we needed to do. So joined the team. We had like a 6-game stretch where we were on the road. And again, I'm holding my own, playing well. Like I said, the ball went inside first, so you had to be able to spread the floor, knock down 3-pointers. I was shooting the ball with confidence then, so ball came my way. I was open. I was knocking down shots. So the Rockets decided to keep me. Little did we know what was going to happen come playoff time. So for about 2 months, getting acclimated with everyone, great group of guys. They treated me like family from word go. Practices, when we played opponents, we were the second team, so I would have to mimic whoever the 2 guard was on the opposing team, a la John Starks in the finals. Rudy would tell me, shoot the ball from anywhere. Go out of bounds, shoot it, because John Starks was known for shooting the ball from anywhere, But we had that type of identity, and we were a close-knit group of people. Not only we practice together, we work out in the weight room together. A lot of guys would go out to eat together. Families would come over for Thanksgiving and things like that. So it was a real good nucleus. But what people don't know about that team and Akeem Olajuwon is from the start of the playoffs, because of his religious beliefs, he was fasting.
Ramadan, yeah.
Exactly. So for those that don't know, he's not eating any food. It's bread and water and prayer. Now, we're talking a 7-footer, 260 or 275 pounds.
It's like from sun up to sun down, he can't eat.
Yeah. Can't eat. In fact, you're right. Can't eat, but he can have water.
Could you have, I can't remember. I'm not.
If I'm saying
I
it
thought
correctly.
they couldn't eat anything. Well, he had to have water. Well,
I thought it was only water.
Okay.
I didn't think he could eat food. We may want to get them to check that just to make sure. But I believe it was just on water.
Check it.
Yeah, fact check that for sure. But I believe it was. But I remember in the summit, he had a prayer closet, and he would spend hours in there praying. But this guy put the whole team, the whole city on his back. And he wasn't just playing against, second-rate players. He was destroying legendary centers.
Think about the centers back then.
David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Mark Eaton, Kevin Duckworth. I'm just going in the West.
Yeah.
Vlade Divas.
I don't know. Was Rick Smits back then? The
Indiana Pacers. Yes, Rick Smith. Luke Longley.
Yeah.
All those guys. Like I said, I was just trying to stay in the West here.
Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal in Orlando.
You had true centers back then.
You did. For the Seattle Supersonics, you had Sean Kemp, but you had Benoit Benjamin.
Benoit Benjamin wasn't.
Sam Perkins was there.
Yeah.
And
Benoit Benjamin.
I think it was Benoit Benjamin. Sean Kemp started for them at that time. Olden Polynice.
That's what yeah.
So big bruisers. Chris Dudley for the Portland Trailblazers, you know. And Akeem was he took it upon himself through his prayer to just carry us, you know.
And he was different at that time because, remember, Akeem back in the 80s was ready to go.
Oh.
I mean, he was ready. His fuse was like that, and he was ready to go.
No, he did go. There's footage of, you know.
Is there?
Yeah, there's footage of where guys would feel more than just his, you know, his dream shake.
Because I thought that they were testing him, you know, like they would push him, but he wasn't really fighting back. I think at that time.
Well, during
during
the run that we had, no, he was completely mature. He had settled down.
That's what I meant. Yeah, during that time.
I thought you meant his early days coming in.
Oh no, 80s.
No, he's got footage of that, but no.
Yeah.
No, he was very humble.
Yeah.
He was into his prayer. They had his wife fly in from their country. You know, which people don't know this, but he was a prince, or not was, but is a prince from his country.
Yeah.
So his wife came from their country to marry him. He had a beautiful daughter and out in California.
Yep.
Just a real humbling guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was soft-spoken, and he cared about everybody. He knew what I was going through to stick with the team. So after practice, work with me. I'd go down.
Wow.
Passing the ball in the post, kick out, shoot with confidence. He'd tell me in the game, you open, shoot it. You know, he wasn't one of those guys that was arrogant or anything like that. So he was our leader, and he wanted the best for everybody. That's what made those Rockets teams so unique, because we didn't have the pressure that he did. We could just be ourselves and just play off of him. And Rudy designed it that way. You know, it was beautiful to watch. It was beautiful basketball. And to watch him in the months to come in the playoffs was just, night in and night out, was just incredible. And to know that he was on fumes and just got up and do it over and over again. And then to wind up being in the finals against Patrick Ewing, which they had their run in college, to see him play against Patrick like he did.
For 7 games.
Yeah, they butted.
Banging for 7 games.
Yeah, each other.
And Patrick was a big dude. I mean, Patrick's bigger than Akeem.
Much bigger. Much bigger.
Good Lord.
They banged all night long, but, you know, talking about game 3 in the Garden, I'll never forget that. You knew where you were. I was on the sideline there, and I'll never forget, the game was going on. And all of a sudden, in Madison Square Garden, every screen just fade to black, and poof, this white Bronco is driving down the freeway.
They put that in the Garden? Really?
As you saw it?
During the game.
During the game.
Oh my God,
During
really?
the game, the refs blowing whistles, calling fouls. The fans couldn't see the game no more from the big screen.
And OJ stood going on down the freeway. Y'all are
wide open.
Refs blowing whistles, and y'all are
and we're taking a glance and looking, but the game is going on. So pretty unique to see that happen.
So if
but
you're sitting down, you're able to kind of glance up and kind of see the footage.
Slightly, you could.
Yeah.
You did not want to get caught doing that. Of course not.
No.
You know,
not in that situation.
Not in the finals. But it was on and live. It definitely was.
I love this picture. Look at that. If you can go, I don't know if we can go back to that previous picture, the media guide. But we see There's Larry right. That's a good action shot of you right there.
Yeah.
That's a good shot right there.
You know, that picture right there, believe it or not, became the front cut.
Right there. There's the media guy. There he is, front, right in the center.
I am right behind the great David Stern as he's giving us the ball. But that was that picture right there. Not only was the media guy, but it was the phone book for the Houston area the following year.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
when they're still doing phone books, I don't know if they still
were
do phone
doing
books anymore.
back
Yeah.
then.
Wow.
So that got me a lot more of attention than I really wanted to back then. Because go to the mall and girl would say, "Is that you on the front of the phone book?" So.
So you just said, let me back up a second. So you just said more attention than you wanted to.
Yeah.
So you weren't really into that.
No. I at that age had kids. They were there for the championship, but as we were talking off screen, athletes get labeled to be certain things.
Yeah.
A lot of it is not them looking for attention; it's attention coming their way. Our world, for whatever reason, feels like guys that are elite players have fringe benefits and can do extra things and all. But at the end of the day, we're just men, just like someone that's going to their 9 to 5 as well too. So no, you didn't. And at that time, Houston was embracing the whole NBA championship because that's the first championship ever in the city of Houston. So everywhere we went, with Akeem not being a guy that goes out, everywhere the rest of us went, we got attention.
Yeah.
So, you had to be careful with that part too. Yeah.
I mean, but that's such a great picture. I mean, for you to have that picture for yourself too, to have forever.
Yeah.
You got Akeem right there.
Otis Thorpe
to the left. Yeah.
Eric Riley's right behind him.
Yeah, Eric Riley. Yeah.
That little kid that's touching the ball with his mouth open, that's Vernon Maxwell's son.
Okay.
Yeah, that's little Max, who at the time was just a kid, but he loved the team. He didn't want to miss no games. Couldn't believe he was up there touching the gold ball like that. It was just great. There's more to that picture. Right underneath my armpit, you see a hand trying to come right beside Stern. That's Kenny Smith trying to touch the gold ball underneath my arm there. Like I said, we were brothers. They embraced me as if I'd been there the whole year, and to wear that ring means everything to me.
So you guys were champions. So talk about the mentality that you guys had during that run, right? I mean, because y'all, through the competition back then, I mean,
we were 6th seed. So we were the 6th seed.
Yeah.
And Seattle was ranked number 1 at the time, which they had some crazy number of wins, 55 wins, I believe, out of 82 games that year. So Gary Payton and Sean Kemp were just tearing up the West at the time. Karl Malone and the Jazz was real tough at the time too. Portland had Clyde Drexler, Kevin Duckworth, Terry Porter. Phoenix had Barkley, Dan Marley. Big Oliver Miller. They had those horses there too. The mentality was, if we can keep it close, we got the best closer in the game, because Mike was gone. And like I said at the beginning of this, the game was inside out at the time. And who wouldn't want to throw the ball into Akeem to go get a basket? And we did. We'd keep it close. Defense was out. We hung our hat on defense, perimeter defense. And because we knew he clogged the middle up, and then he had an enforcer in Otis Thorpe on the other side, grabbing 10, 15 boards a game. So the nucleus was there.
Yeah.
But Rudy wouldn't allow us to beat ourselves mentally. And we never could get our egos in the way. Okay. I'll just use me for an example. Larry, you had a good third quarter. You scored 8 to 10 points. You were hot that quarter. But that's not our offense. We're not going to keep going through you. Dream's going to check back in the game. You did your part. Great job, Larry. Fist pump. let's get back to what we know. Let's get the ball in the dream and let's keep playing.
Yeah.
That's the type of team that it was.
You know, a great role players. You had really nice depth too.
Yeah. Carl Herrera was phenomenal in the playoffs for us, even with a busted shoulder. You know.
Oh, that's right. He had the busted shoulder.
Yeah,
that's
he
right.
did.
I remember that.
Vernon was our second leading scorer. Kenny had a great playoffs. Sam Cassell became a star.
Yeah.
Right after his his rookie year, hit that big shot in Game 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
To seal the win for us. So, and we were all glad to be role players. And clearly, you had the dream.
Did you bring your ring? That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. No, I've gotten to see his ring. I've gotten to put his ring on one time before.
Definitely did.
It's a thing of beauty. It is an absolute thing. It's got some weight to it.
It does.
Oh my goodness, it is a thing of beauty. That first championship.
You know, when I got married, that was one of the deals to where I had to take the ring and put it in the safe because it was such a attention getter.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it became something I didn't wear all the time. I remember for a while there when I got it, I think I slept in it for about a month. I just couldn't believe you got greats like Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton. You know, those guys didn't win championships. And here I am with an NBA championship.
Well, think about it, the first half of that decade. Well, so Detroit won in 90, and the Bulls won 91, 1993. So really, there's really two teams that kept those great teams from winning, Rockets and the Bulls.
Right. That's why the debate is always who would have won if Michael would have been playing during that time when you said he was the best player on the planet.
Well, and he even said they wouldn't have had an answer for Hakeem.
No one did. And
we always played them great. I mean, we always played them tough and always had success against them. I think more often than not we did. Because what are you going to do with Hakeem? Nothing.
No, and he fouled out most of your big guys, so you're going to go small, which a small guy can't guard him. But like I said earlier, we prided ourselves on playing perimeter defense. I'm not saying we would have stopped Michael.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. I just would have loved to seen that matchup during this time here, those two championships, because
I mean that's one of the most hurtful what ifs.
Yeah.
I mean that hurts.
Yeah.
That we'll never get to see that.
No.
Oh my goodness. So all right, so mentors. Let's talk about some of your mentors growing up. Who was probably your biggest mentor, I guess, throughout your basketball journey? Who would you consider your biggest mentor?
If I had to give that title to one person, it would be my late uncle, Charles Hunter.
Okay.
My Uncle Charles was the basketball player in our family. He went to Panola Junior College. I used to think it was so cool when he came home with his Panola Junior College Letterman's jacket on, big afro. He always carried a basketball. And I was about 3 or 4 years old. He came home, and one day he brought me my own basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who put the ball in my hands, kind of passed the torch on to me. He was about 6 foot, 6'1", phenomenal shooter, but wasn't tall enough. And he was the mentor for me then. And then as I started to blossom with it, I had an elementary coach by the name of Jerry Tim Brooks, who was one of my mentors. In fact, not only was my mentor with basketball, but he's probably the reason I play golf as much as I do today, because I used to shag golf balls for him after I practiced for 2 hours. He then would take me and go shag golf balls for him. And then as I moved on up to getting a little bit more mature and things like that, it was people in my life, Tommy, that didn't have no, they wasn't in no spotlight or anything like that. It would just be men from my neighborhood, family men, great leaders, great fathers, that no matter what happened, they always stepped up for the families.
Right.
I saw a lot more of that than I saw great superstars growing up. hardworking men, and the ones that would tell me never give up. So I had mentors of people like that, and then when I got to the high school level, I got to see a lot more coaches and be around a lot more people like that, and so those became the Tommy Vardamans and Canterburys of the world and Jerry Smiths of the world, that I would just go pick their brain about
Right.
basketball and life. So college coaches, high school coach were a lot more of my mentors then. And then, like I said, it was my uncle who really set the precedence for me.
Okay. As we kind of get close to wrapping up, I have a few more questions I want to get into with you. This has been fantastic, by the way. This has been, I told you, people are going to get to know you, and I think they're going to be better, for this conversation. So my people who know me, my day job, I work with elementary school age kids.
Sure.
And so you had a close relationship with your father, and you have a close relationship with your sons. A lot of the kids that I work with, especially the boys I'm talking about specifically, don't have those relationships, right? So they come to school every day angry. They come to school every day very temperamental, defiant, right? And because a lot of them, who I do know, dad's in jail,
mm-hmm.
or just non-existent,
mm-hmm.
nowhere in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do, Larry, for these boys at that young age to try to help them become strong, confident young men without having that role model from the start of their life? Because that's what I'm seeing a bit. That's my daily challenge. I mean, what's your advice? What do you see that needs to be done?
Can I be totally transparent with you?
That's why we're here. I want you to be as transparent as you want to be.
Because I was one of those kids. Yeah, I have a great relationship with my father, and I miss my dad. But my mother and father split up when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
My mother took me and my younger brother and moved in with her mom. They were a young couple in love, but when you're young and immature, you let words seep in, you let people influence you to do things that you regret. And my mother and father split up.
Okay.
So my dad was around, but not like he was every day for the first 6 or 7 years of my life.
Okay.
My father came back into my life my sophomore year in college. I was graduating from getting my associate's degree. My father showed up, and we made a pact to never be out of each other's lives. And I was 20 at the time. I only got 6 more years with them after that. Mm-hmm. So he passed away at 44. But to answer your question about the kids you see every day, our society has to stop labeling our black men because they're black men. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is everyone that looks like me is not out to harm you.
Right.
Everyone's ain't out to rob you. Everyone's not got no rap sheet. They need opportunities to take care of their families. Mm-hmm. As I told you, my father didn't get past the 10th grade, right? And but he was a hardworking man. And our kids need their dads in their lives just as much as they need their moms in their lives for these very reasons alone. I grew up wondering at night where my dad was, And the reason I have the relationship with my family, my kids today, is because I didn't have that for a while in my life. So what can we do? We can try to level the playing field in this world and give these kids both of their parents. Our society and kids, I'm assuming you're talking about African-American kids primarily.
Yeah, that's what I have. Primarily African-American and Hispanic kids are my students every day.
Well,
and they come from low socioeconomic backgrounds,
sure.
Like all of them.
Sure. Well, I'll speak on both of those because they're the same, but they're different.
Okay.
The African American kids, that they need both of the parents in the household. Most kids are successful in life if they got both of their parents around. It's a known fact about that. However, if a guy makes a mistake, this society is so hard on him, to where by the time you get a second chance in life, 10 years has passed.
Mm-hmm.
That's asking a kid to be without that parent for 10 years unless you're going to do visitations or don't know who your dad is or whatever. That's a decade.
Right.
I don't think our laws got to become softer. I just think we've got to get into a position where we give people an opportunity to get back into the world to change things. And these kids need both of their parents.
Mm-hmm.
I needed my dad too. But what I did have is I had a community that would hover around, and no guys didn't come over and cut the grass for us, or my mom didn't have different boyfriends or things like that. But men would educate me on what's right and what's wrong. Kids need guidance, right? And we're always trying to sell them the dream of becoming an athlete or a performer. And there's more to this world than just that. And we get labeled. And this kid may not be talented enough to be a football, basketball player. So what? Maybe he can become an astronaut. We have to open up these closed doors that have been closed for so long that only a certain few people get to go through to make this world better for guys like that. And to stay on this part here, you as a teacher doing that, you need way more help than what they give you to do this. And I know kids have been your passion. Yeah, we've been away from one another, but you've been doing this a long time. And you need more avenues to help change their lives. And you don't have that. You're limited to that. And that's what I think they really need. It's harder for a guy like me to come into a neighborhood and have a conversation with a kid to talk about the rights and wrongs not to do, because I'm not living in this world right now. Right. And no one was living in mine back then either. So you can't tell me we ain't got no food in the house and I'm the oldest kid. I have no money and I got brothers and sisters and they need to eat. What do you expect me to do? Mm-hmm. If you're not going to give me an opportunity to go out there and make something of myself. So we've got to love more in this world, and treat people the same.
Right.
And when you say low income, this high and middle and low categories, that's wrong. God didn't make us high, right, middle, and low. He made us all the same. Right. We've shoved people in those. And then to get to the Hispanic part of it as well. As long as we don't fix this border issue, we're going to look at Hispanics as immigrants that are don't deserve a chance here, because you look at one, you think, did he sneak into the country? Is he here illegally? Is he from some cartel or whatever? And it's always negative. And they're hardworking people, just like anyone else is. And those kids need their dads too. I think we need to increase the language barrier. I think we need to teach them way more English than we do. What do you mean, Larry? That should start a lot earlier. So when they are able to get a little bit older, the struggle won't be so hard. I just had a couple gentlemen at my house just the other day to repair a drywall
Mhm.
Neither one of them could speak English, right? So the guy pulls out his phone and does the translation stuff.
Right.
Well, we got through that, but how many opportunities are they missing because they can't speak the language? And we got to find a way to try to change that. That's just my passion. That's just where I'm speaking from.
Right. No.
One race doesn't run this country, and it's been that way for so long. And I just think we got to do better at getting back to what God intended for this to be. And we have it in our Constitution, but we don't live it.
Mm-hmm.
All men are created equal.
Right.
Where is it equal at? Where? 10% of this, the 10% of this world, the wealth is owned or have by certain people.
Mm-hmm.
You mean to tell me you couldn't take a portion of this wealth and make sure that it's put over here so these people can have a better life? You ain't going to miss that in your sleep.
Right.
But we won't do it. We won't do it. So, I do believe Christ is coming back. And, all knees will have to be bent and all heads will have to bow. But we've got to be more kinder to each other.
100%. And that's where it starts.
Has to.
That's where it starts.
You can't look at me and think that I'm a threat to you and you don't even know me.
Right.
How is that possible? You don't know my struggle. So I get passionate about that because I was once one of those kids, and we just have to get to that. I don't know if we've ever been to that, but we have to get to that for life to change for a lot of people.
And take a lot of work, but we got to get people to buy in.
Look at where we are. We're in 2024. We can go to the moon, spend billions of dollars to go to the moon, but we can't take $1 billion and change the living homes, the houses, the streets, the grocery stores in certain neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. But we can put a spaceship. Hey, it's money at the end of the day. I get it, but we have to change how we view human beings.
Let's turn the subject to kids, because there's a YouTube video of you doing a basketball camp. And talk about why it's important for you to work with the kids. What's your message to kids when you work with them about life?
I've always taught this in my 10 years of doing my basketball camps. Every day that we get up, we need to try to accomplish something. Life is hard work in itself, but try to learn something different today than you did yesterday. Don't just become stagnant with the same thing over and over again, because you'll perfect that, but you won't know nothing else but that. And so you're limiting yourself if you just work on that. That's one of my messages. 2, work harder than you did the day before. Don't sit back and say, yeah, I kind of worked hard yesterday. I'm just going to take it easy today. No, work even harder today, because we're not promised tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And if it's sports, practice. You kind of asked me offset, how's that golf game? And, I play a lot of golf, but I should be practicing way more than I play. But I do it for exercise now. So I'm saying that to say, if you're trying to make something of yourself and be better at it, practice it. Practice makes perfect. At least that's what we've always been taught. You ain't going to be perfect, but you'll get as close to it as you can be. So don't be lazy about it. Work hard, improve, and know that you're improving.
Right.
Because if you see your game developing, then you know you're improving. If you see your game's not, then you're not working hard enough.
It's like I tell my students, especially the older ones, like the 4th and 5th graders, I say, just when you're here, put in a good day's work in the classroom. You're here, you're getting a free education. You might as well make the most of it. Because I tell them, me personally, at the end of the day, I ask myself, was I productive today? Did I give my best? And it bothers me if that answer is no, because then I know the next day I've got to work even harder.
Right.
And that's a lesson I try to teach the kids, because you have to look in the mirror before you go to bed at night. And that's the question you should ask before you go to bed. What did I do today? Right? What did I do anything good? Was I productive? Did I get better at something? Did I learn something? Right?
That's a great message. It's nothing wrong with your message. When you said, let's go back to the very beginning of what you said,
Mm-hmm.
be productive, right? It's hard just going back to this again, and I'm very sensitive to this. He can be productive in your classroom, but he's got to face reality when he goes home.
You're 100% right. No, you are. You're right.
And it's hard to be productive when you know that there's a reality facing you as soon as that bell rings at 3 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
right? I wish there was a way that kids can take that reality and set it over here for a while and be productive, but they're already thinking about what they got to do when they have to leave here. And you and your schools are somewhat safe havens for kids, because they got to go back out there into the world.
They can't compartmentalize when they're at school. They can't do it.
They cannot.
They can't do it at all.
And we, as a society, has always wanted them to do exactly that. So, hey, no one had to tell me how to be productive, but even when my younger brother was alive, and this kid went through 3 major brain surgeries, it was hard for me to try to be productive that day and know that I'm fixing to go home and face him who's has to walk with a limp.
Mm-hmm.
We got to bring him his food. He wasn't a vegetable. He did for himself, but he couldn't do half the stuff I could do because he was limited with the strength in his arm and in his hand. I thought about that throughout my day. Like, what do I do first? Do I go play ball as soon as I get done? Or do I go home and make sure my brother has what he needs? That's what kids are dealing with. It may not be to that extreme, but there's something that's pulling them so they can't be productive.
Right.
And that's why I get back to, we got to make life better for people.
As a professional athlete, what was let me start. So from the time you were a kid leading up to you reaching the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
obviously you have to have physical talent, you have to have skills, but I'm more interested in the mental side of it. So what was your mental makeup as an athlete when you were training, when you were trying to prepare, to reach the pinnacle, which you have?
Mm-hmm.
What was your mental makeup like all those years, from the time you were a kid all the way on up when you were training and getting ready? Because I want kids to understand this too, because I get a lot of kids who say, I'm going to be in the NFL one day.
Right.
I'm going to be in the NBA. They say it with confidence, great, but I want them to hear it from the horse's mouth who's been through it, so they know exactly what to expect and what they need to do.
My mentality with that was, I have to fall in love with what I was trying to become. So I fell in love with sports right away. If you just like something, you're not gonna give it 100% because you like it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to love it. So I fell in love with sports, but I fell in love with basketball. And when I did practice, I practiced like it was my last practice every single day, every day. And then when I didn't practice, I felt bad because I wasn't getting better if I didn't practice.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to stay away from trouble. Right? Not that I was afraid. I wasn't a scary kid. I had my share of run-ins, but I limited those. I avoided stuff that would get me in trouble. Won't say no names, but if I had a couple friends that wanted to go hit up the grocery store and get some food, because, when I mean hit it up, stuff some stuff in my pockets.
Yeah.
They only had to say that one time to me. I know I'm not going around them because that ain't gonna be nothing but trouble for me. I avoided confrontation. And even my neighborhood embraced that. That's why I love home. Back then there were street gangs everywhere, and other neighborhoods would try to come over and punk you in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I had dudes in my neighborhood would literally tell me they're fixing to go fight up the street. Everybody's running to go see the fight. They wouldn't even allow me to go see the fight. They'd send me to the basketball courts and just stay out there and play.
Mm-hmm.
Stay out there and hoop. You're gonna make it one day. Don't go, because somebody might pull out a gun and start shooting, and you're an innocent bystander,
right.
Or you might get hit the wrong place. It was always that. So I avoided confrontation, and stuck to what I love to do, and that became my reputation around my neighborhood. He ain't about no trouble. He ain't afraid, but he ain't about no trouble. He just want to play ball. So they left me alone. So kids need to avoid confrontation.
Okay.
Too many times we've run to the confrontation.
Especially with phones now.
Especially with phones now. I talked to my youngest daughter. Shout out to Felicity, who just graduated from high school, who's actually going to the Chris Brown concert tonight.
Congratulations.
Yes,
on the graduation.
Fifi's she's an exceptional kid. I talked about the older kids, but she's the baby of the bunch, and off to college next year. I can't believe I got a kid going to college.
Where to?
She's gonna stay home here in Texas and go to school here. She's changed. She's definitely a college student. She's changed the major a couple times already. She's changed the school a couple times already. But I think she's gonna start out at Trinity Community College here.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to do. So this is a fun fact for you. I know I jumped real quick.
That's okay.
Everyone in the family, her mom, me, and her siblings, we all got associate's degrees first, and then we went and got our bachelor's degree.
Okay.
So she caught wind of that. Her brothers and sisters, everybody got them. So she wanted to keep the train moving. So she turned away from going to a 4-year school. She wants to go get her associate's degree first and then move to a 4-year school and have it a complete package like everyone else has in the family.
Got
so
it.
I'm proud of her for doing that, because that's
great.
a family.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a family little deal that she wanted to do on her own. But getting back to her, I tell her to avoid confrontation, because again, you've got plans for your life and we've got plans for your life, and it's okay to avoid it. Doesn't mean you're a scary person.
Mm-hmm.
Just means you're trying to do better in your life.
Right.
So to tell those kids that, I always tell them that, because that one time that you don't avoid it may be the last time that you don't. So
appreciate. Well, so we got a couple minutes left. So real fast. So in 2012 in Shreveport, you were inducted to the Arkla Sports Museum of Champions. What did that mean? Real quick, what did that mean for you?
That was an honor. They created a sports. Louisiana is known for sportsman's paradise.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anytime that your home state can recognize you as one of the greats, it was truly an honor. And this was the first museum established. So it was great to go in. I went in with the great Doug Williams, former Redskin and Grambling State NFL champion quarterback. So it was phenomenal.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's get your golf tournament in too.
Yes.
You have a golf tournament coming up. Let's
I
talk
do.
about that real quick.
So as you know, the Larry Robinson Family Foundation has, we do this for kids with malignant brain tumors.
Mm-hmm.
We just added mental awareness to raising funds for mental illness people.
Mm-hmm.
We have some family members that suffer with that. And so last year was a great success back at home in Bossier City. So we're hoping to do the golf tournament the first part of September, right around Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
And we're going to do that again back in Bossier City. We had a great turnout. We're looking to double those numbers again. The thing I want to do this year, and people can look at, they can email me at Larry Robinson Family Foundation at yahoo.com.
Okay.
They can go to my Facebook page or my Instagram page, ask questions about it. We've actually got flyers getting ready to be posted, so people will be able to add their teams to it and get those registrations done.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so you can, like I said, email him. The email address, when you see the recording,
Yes.
you'll hear his email address.
Yes.
Instagram, Facebook, all the social media platforms. Good. I want to thank our buddy for introducing us, man, 20 years ago.
Yes.
The unofficial mayor of Shreveport, Mr. Pat Boris. I don't know if we have our picture up there, but there's a picture from, I think it was 2011 of the three of us. It's a little fuzzy. I'm not sure we'll show it or not, but Pat's been a close friend of ours for many, many years, a wonderful, wonderful guy. Anything Shreveport you want to know, he's a guy to go to.
He'll even cross the bridge and go over to Bossier City.
He will. He absolutely will.
He will.
He'll go to Ernest with you too.
Definitely will go to Ernest with you. You know, a real quick fun fact about him too. I'm using that word fun fact a lot. Pat was my SID in college, sports information director.
Right.
So he would spend hours after games calling ESPN, getting footage of me on ESPN or getting my name, getting our scores put out there. He did so much behind the scenes work to where, I just love the guy because he believed in me long before I even believed in myself.
Right.
And, we're still friends this day. We've only had one fight my whole entire life with him. And we wrestled. We didn't fight, but I wish him nothing but the best. He is the unofficial mayor of Shreveport, no doubt.
He is. Let me tell you, man. So with me today, you got to know Larry Robinson. I feel like I know you now. And I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. Conversation. I really appreciate it. That's going to do it for this episode. Wow, what an episode. I'm blown away. Like I said, I knew nothing really about your background, your life, and everything. I'm grateful for how transparent you were and open you were, because that really helps our podcast. It helps everybody to learn something about themselves too, and that's really the objective of why we do this. So you can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Tommy D, Plan A Creations. You want to follow the podcast. You got Larry's social media, Facebook. You got his email. You got his Instagram. And huge thank you to the guys here at MZ Studios. What a fantastic job, guys. Thank you, Michael and Spider. Appreciate you guys. And once again, my man, 20 years I've known you. Well, thought I knew you.
Yeah.
I got to know you. And then real quick, I know you love cigars.
Oh.
I tried to get you a Monte Cristo or Romeo y Julieta, but they didn't have them. So I'm not a cigar aficionado. I don't know what that is, but I think it's going to be, he said it's a close thing to Romeo y Julieta. So
let me say this. I'll take this. You'll probably see this on the golf course with me real soon. So I'll shout this out to you. But
I appreciate it.
Hey, any cigar is a good cigar.
I love it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Love you, man.
Love
appreciate
you too, brother.
Appreciate
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right.
Appreciate all of you very much for watching. Thank you all so much. And come back for another slice of Deep Dish podcast next time. God bless.
It's going down. It's going down.